Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm very excited to bring to you Dr. Julie Donley, and let me tell you about her. She is a transformative force in leadership development whose career spans the intersection of healthcare, psychology, and organizational excellence. A leadership coach, award-winning author, and former director of nursing, she brings nearly 30 years of experience helping professionals navigate high-stress environments. With her forthcoming book, Leading at the Speed of People. With a background forged in behavioral health settings, Dr. Donley developed practical strategies for emotional mastery and conflict management that have become cornerstones of her innovative approach to leadership. Her academic credentials are impressive, as her practical experience holding a doctorate in organizational leadership, an MBA, and certification as a professional coach with the International Coaching Federation. And what truly distinguishes Dr. Donley is her pioneering CARE, C-A-R-E, leadership model emphasizing communication, appreciation, respect, and empathy, a framework that challenges conventional leadership approaches, particularly as AI transform workplace dynamics. We're going to go ahead and get right into this. I chose the title, or the theme for today is Why Great Leaders Focus on Self-Awareness Before Strategy. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Julie Donley.
Oh, hi,
Julie,
Vicki. Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
so
so much.
excited. You're very
Yeah.
welcome. The, you know, for those out there that know, I teach leading with the heart, the head, and the hand. And that's why I love this theme of focusing on self-awareness before strategy. We're so aligned in all of the things that you're doing. And so it's going to be a great conversation.
Yes, I'm excited. Thank you for having me today, Vicki. This is, really looking forward to this.
So we always start out with two easy questions. Sometimes you prove me wrong that they're easy, but the first question is, what part of the country do you live in? Where do you call home?
I am just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I live here with my husband. We are celebrating our anniversary this week, actually being married 15 years. We have a dog. And we're new grandparents. So we have a granddaughter who's a year old and another one on the way. So we're just really excited for
Nice.
part of our
Well,
lives. Yeah.
so cool. So I actually am going to be in Philadelphia in August. I'm running to be an international director for Toastmasters, and the convention is in Philadelphia in mid-August. So I will be around that corner of your area. And yesterday I celebrated my 46th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
So
Oh my
very
goodness.
cool. And I too have two grandchildren, but mine are 6 and 9. So very much aligned every which way.
That's
So
wonderful.
let's talk about this journey that you had. I gave all these accolades that show that you have the credentials to do what you do, but I love to always have you share the journey, that just to demonstrate that it isn't always a straight path, that there are struggles that you had to overcome that made you stronger in doing what you do today.
I Yeah, I had no straight path at all. That's for sure. So I started my career in healthcare, in behavioral health, first as a psychiatric technician while I was going to nursing school, and then became a nurse and eventually director of nursing. And a pivotal moment came in that first job when I was degree. I just wasn't a nurse. And the leader was horrible, just
Yeah.
put it bluntly. And she created this environment of fear. She did everything wrong. She played favorites. She didn't
Hmm.
communicate. She'd tell one person one thing, I mean, like everything that you can imagine. And so the people were very fearful. And it was the first time for me how I could see that leadership could really harm people and harm the
Yeah.
business. She made everything worse. And so I, made a commitment to learn how to lead differently. There had to be a
Yeah.
better way, right?
Hmm.
Respectfully, effectively, humanely. And that experience really launched me into a lifelong study of leadership and culminating in my doctorate, my doctoral research, and my book, Leading at the Speed of People, which I'm really excited about. It did launch a few months back. And so my mission is to help leaders to reduce their stress,
Mm.
communicate clearly and confidently, and lead authentically in a way that brings out the best in themselves and others. I mean, along the way, I've had some really bad leadership experience. I think I learned a lot from those
Yeah.
folks. um, and we don't really get to be a great leader by just reading about it
Mm.
or watching others. We have to practice it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, was no straight road to being here. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's an important point you make for those out there that are maybe managers today and not quite yet leaders,
Mhm.
is that everybody is watching. And so you really need to be aware of what you're doing and maybe put yourself into that place of, and that's where empathy comes in. But if I was in their shoes, how would I react to how I just spoke to you or directed you and start to make a change?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the questions that I ask the most of clients, my coaching clients today, is how do you want to be known? How do you want to show up? How do you want people to feel? Which is what you were saying. How do you want people to feel after interacting with you?
Mhm.
And in my book, I share a story about how um, when I was in business school before I became a nerd, like way back, before I knew anything about where I was going with my life, I remember professor teaching, this was in the 80s, so no internet. Um, and he said to us, what if you were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, which was like the big magazine at the time, or big newspaper at the time? What would you want people to see? And that really, I mean, I was a young 20 something, that really stuck with me. How do I want to be known? If I was going to be on the front page of the paper, I don't want to be in handcuffs, And unfortunately, that happened to an old neighbor of mine, where he was literally on the front
Mhm.
page of the paper in handcuffs. And you just think, ooh, but it's an interesting way to think about your life, especially today, because everybody has a camera. And so, how do you want people to talk about you, to think about you? And people are watching all day, your kids, your boss, your spouse, everybody, your neighbors, the Joneses. What is that person doing? And so it matters how we want to show
Yeah.
up. And I think that's the distinction of a leader, is that everybody is watching, but leaders care about how they present themselves to others because
Hmm.
they know that they are a role model and they take that seriously.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think, in the modern times, And of course, I was in business school in the late 70s, so I can relate to the Wall Street Journal. But I used to tell my kids who are in their 30s now regarding social media and what they put out there, would you be comfortable having that post on a bus going up and down Georgia 400 or a highway in Atlanta? And if not, then don't put it out there because it's much bigger of an audience than that road would be. And, you know, I understand and I believe that we should stand for purpose and passion, but sometimes having a rant on social media is not going to project yourself as somebody that others want to have as a leader.
Yeah,
Because how are you controlling your emotions and your anger, if you will? So that's another side of it too.
absolutely. Absolutely. Really good point. Really good point. And I don't think people always stop and assess that. They
Hmm.
just act and then they go, whoops, you know, and that's not leading. That's reacting.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's talk about AI. I love AI. I think it's growing up as a young person entering the workforce when computers were just being introduced. I feel like this is almost that excitement that I had then too. The unknown, the questions of whether it's worth doing, changing what we always did and and taking a chance that it may make your life easier, better, more fulfilling. Time management is a huge thing for us, especially all those entrepreneurs out there. And, I save over 40 hours a week with using AI. So, how is AI reshaping leadership challenges, especially for women leaders out there?
AI, yes, and I loved your analogy to just having computers and the internet and just these big changes that have changed how we do life and
Hmm.
work. So yes, it's changing the landscape of work and can help with many tasks. I think back to the countless hours that my team and I spent putting together these job aids and training modules for nurses on how to use the electronic medical record. You know, so if we had AI then, oh my gosh, it would have saved us so much time. However, while AI can enhance efficiency, can do scheduling for even the kids, isn't solving the emotional challenges of leadership. So, in fact, it can amplify them because um, it focuses on tasks, not on people. So, for women who are often expected to carry out the emotional burden on teams. AI can unintentionally increase burnout by automating tasks without addressing those human complexities, like navigating conflict, managing personalities, building trust, team building. And so AI introduces its own set of challenges like training, clear policies on when to use it, when it's acceptable. Your each company has to decide for itself what works and what doesn't. And even support for those who struggle with new technologies, the people who are still operating with a flip phone because they don't want a smartphone. So helping people adopt change still falls on the leader, and that can't be automated, right? And then the emotional labor of leadership, which is coaching, mentoring, developing, and motivating people, managing your own emotions and those of others, that can't be outsourced to AI. Building community, appreciating people. AI doesn't talk back, it doesn't feel, it doesn't build relationships, although it can sort of build a relationship.
Some.
But yeah, I mean, it's still a machine. It doesn't.
Mhm.
So it might suggest how to handle a difficult conversation, which is really interesting. I was just reading about that. Like if you have a conflict at work, you can ask AI to tell you the
Role
best way to
plays.
solve it. Yeah, but only a human can deliver it with
That's right.
empathy and nuance. And so AI does help with these routine tasks, but the human aspects of leadership, which is that emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and connection that becomes even more important while AI does the rest, to focus on the tasks.
And I was a project lead for a long time, and I remember as I was coming up in the ranks and being mentored by some great leaders, but I also had some not so great leaders. But even the great ones, there were times where they had no time for you when you needed their time. And so that's where I think AI really is useful is being able to do those mundane tasks that don't need the emotional intelligence or the empathy piece. You know, those route, however you say that, tasks that routine task that can be done by a machine and effectively, efficiently, correctly, so that you now have time to sit and have coffee, virtual or in person. And that's another whole aspect of the remote worker piece. But importantly, do you take enough time to explain why you're doing something, having them do something, and taking time to notice that maybe they are having a tough day, and finding out, is there anything that they want to talk out with you, or do they need a minute, type of thing. But if you have your head down into your computer just doing those routine tasks, you miss all of that opportunity to avoid something that later could build and grow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the empathy comes in.
Hmm.
And, machines can mimic empathy, but it's just not the same. Yeah, and this is exactly where the empathy comes in, right? So we have to care enough to take the time, that moment, to acknowledge that someone may be experiencing some hurt, or, we don't know what people are carrying.
Yeah.
And this is something that I do speak about in the book. It's just being trauma informed approach to leadership. And all that means is recognizing that everybody is carrying something, every single one of us. And so, and if we weren't before COVID, we are now, right? But
Hmm.
everybody's been
Yeah.
through something, whether it's a car accident or, the death of someone close. So we all have things that we've experienced and that we're experiencing: sick children, older adult parent, old adults, parents. And so maybe illness ourselves. I mean, I had a woman admit to me that she went through cancer. Nobody at work knew. And I think, gosh, nobody
That's
noticed
so
that she
sad.
was, yeah, and she didn't want anybody really to know, but
Yeah.
to have one person as a, just a confidant at work. And so it does make me wonder, did nobody notice, or was she really that good? Well, nobody's really that good. So anyway, I mean, it just, that cannot be automated. The machine isn't going to notice something about you and sit you down and say, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And we need to do better at that. We need to do that more.
Yeah, we do. We do. And again, as I mentioned, remote teams are more and more a thing. And I think rather than trying to get better at building those relationships with your remote team, people just, well, that's one less thing I have to worry about. But no, it's not. And it will come back and bite you later, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and that's why in the book I speak to the care leadership model, which you mentioned in the beginning, and it's a people-centered approach built with around four key pillars, if you will, and that's communicate clearly, appreciate people consistently, respect others, and meet them where they are, and then express empathy as well. These aren't, we think about emotional intelligence as soft skills. They're power tools,
Yeah.
and leadership is all about relationship. So we lead people, we manage tasks, and you mentioned the manager. often is focused on those tasks, but the higher up you go, once you hit director, you're navigating the people part. And so interpersonal skills become so important. So what does that mean? Well, when leaders embrace care, they increase clarity. And they strengthen their relationships. They connect and they foster safety. There's that safety where people feel seen and heard and valued and can speak up. um, so in the book, I also talk about care helping to reduce friction. And friction is anything that slows progress or drains your energy or creates unnecessary tension and stress at work. So this could mean miscommunication, unclear expectations is a huge driver of
Yeah.
dissatisfaction in the workplace, micromanagement, inconsistent follow through. I mentioned my first leader who was, she just instilled fear. Well, all of that productivity, all of us were focused on navigating, surviving
Yeah.
her and not getting her upset or getting on her bad side. All of that energy it was exhausting, and we that
Hmm.
wasn't even the work. We weren't even focused on the work. So by addressing these sources of stress, leaders can create smoother, more effective work
Yeah.
environments where people can thrive. And this takes intention and practice because it's easier to focus on the tasks. It's easier just to focus on the business. But leaders who adopt this care leadership model help to reduce that fear and pressure that often comes with purely task focused leadership style. And this not only lowers stress for them, it makes leadership more rewarding and sustainable for the leader. So when we can reduce friction, people can stop managing the dysfunction and they just
Yeah.
start doing their work and they enjoy coming to work more. It's just a win-win-win. It's a win for everybody, but
Yeah.
it does require a different shift in focus. Leaders can't just accept, oh, that's just how that person is. No. And I always say that if someone is misbehaving at work, I talk about silence, giving the behavior permission. But when I hear someone complaining about, especially a leader, a high level leader that is misbehaving or doing something inappropriate, that's a leadership problem. It's
Yeah.
not that person's problem. Who is that? Who is leading that person?
Exactly.
They're allowing it to occur. And if you have your head, and comes back to self-awareness, but also awareness of what other people are doing and the impact that that behavior is having, that is a business problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What I saw always in my career is that you had people that were promoted because they
Mm,
were really good at the task piece, but nobody, until you got into the upper management, did they focus on leadership skills. And so therefore that person who was promoted only knows the task part in most cases, in many cases. And so whenever things aren't going well and they don't understand why, the person is not following their lead, if you will, and not recognizing that they're really more micromanaging or trying to have that person do as they would do rather than allowing that person their own creativity, innovation. I always say life has GPS in more
mhm,
ways than our car. And
mhm,
so there are different ways to get to that end goal. And are you that leader that allows that person that's supporting you to be able to take that different route, that different path to getting and hoping that it will still have the success that you had always wanted anyway. So I think there's a big disconnect where in succession planning, where
mhm,
our leaders that may be in those higher seats aren't strong in emotional intelligence, aren't really strong in empathy, and so they're selecting people for the wrong reason. You can teach them those tasks, but you can't change their behavior. Only
mhm.
they can do that, right?
Yes. Yes, you make a really good point. Um, and when I teach leadership development to, you know, anyone below the VP level, I often will say to them, don't assume just because they have this title, senior VP, whatever,
Right.
even a senior director, that they have leadership skills, that they have developed the appropriate leadership skills to make them successful. And, people are often surprised, but for the very reason that you said, people get promoted often because they're good at what they do. The doctor who's a really good, everybody, well, loves him, or her, and the nurse. I mean, I've coached many a nurse leader, and it's a whole new set of skills. And
Yeah.
my hope really is that Leading at the Speed of People, the book, I have a new course coming out the end of the month on this very thing, and I hope that people they can learn those skills from that book, because I touch on this in the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
book. We talk about how do you get promoted, and do they teach you? And most of the time the answer is no. They just sort of throw you into the fire. But
Mm-hmm.
leadership is a whole new set of skills that you
Yeah.
have to learn. It's not doing the same job that you were originally technically proficient in. In fact, as you rise in your leading, your technical skills sort of become less. You're not relying on them. You're not the expert
Yeah.
any longer. Your goal and job is to navigate and manage those people who become then the expert in that role. And your job is to help them become the expert for you so that you can manage the output of a bunch of people or a bunch of teams. So it is a different set of skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are women still carrying that emotional
Mhm.
burden in leadership despite all the technology advances we talked about?
Yeah. Well, the cultural expectations haven't kept pace. Women are
It's
still
true.
often expected to serve as the emotional
Yeah.
caretakers at work. So, mediating conflicts, checking in on colleagues' well being, thinking about others, not just the work, and managing the emotional tone of the team. This is all emotional labor. And these invisible responsibilities aren't listed in job descriptions, but they require real time, effort, and emotional energy. And often organizations don't formally recognize and value this
Mhm.
labor. And it takes time and attention to call someone or to check in on them, even on Zoom if you're hybrid,
Yeah.
and says, "Are you okay?" Or "What's going
Hmm.
on with you?" And it would be great if organizations would distribute that more equitably, teach um, everyone to be more effective in this role. And
That's
that
right.
is what's going wrong with the hybrid workforce, because there aren't those, water cooler moments, they call them,
That's
where you
right.
just connect. I mean, you have to create them. It can happen.
Hmm.
You have to create them online in some way, depending on where your team is. And there are teams that have been successful at doing that, um, because they're global. So they were never in the same room
Together. That's right.
together,
That's right.
and they're used to that. And maybe they still struggle with it, but you have to be intentional about it. And it's very easy to say, well, it's just not part of what we need to get done today. But it's sort of the wrong attitude, because the
Hmm.
tasks are performed by people. Even when you're using AI, you're feeding it information. Somebody has to feed it the information in order to get back what you want. And so businesses are run by people. And so if we want to build strong, sustainable organizations, we need to do better with the people part.
Yeah. When I was in the corporate office about 10 o'clock, our whole group would go downstairs. We'd have a break and chit chat, laugh, and for 15 minutes and then go back up. At lunchtime, we all got down there together. Sometimes we solve work problems, but a lot of times we just got to know each other and have. And so I always said, well, okay, now my teams that are in other countries, other parts of the states, why can't we just have 10 o'clock? It's a Zoom break. Because as remote workers, we sometimes don't take breaks. We just work, work, work. And sure, individually, I'll go for a walk or, I'll step away, do laundry, whatever it is, just to get away from the computer. But if you have a team, you have to be aware of that. And COVID really is when I started to do that a lot more, because I
Mm.
thought I would reach out to people who I knew were shut in and just chat with them. Like, hey, do you have 10 or 15 minutes? I just wanted to check in how you're doing. And they were really rich conversations that ended up happening from those. So you can do it in this online environment. And who's to say that it wouldn't be fun to have a social Zoom every so often with your team, once a day or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were intentional about it. Women traditionally are the caregivers, right? We take care of our elderly parents, we take care of the kids, so the burden for some reason rests with women. Nursing is still predominantly women, although it's,
Yeah.
men are going into it. It's a very lucrative career. So, but that is emotional labor. That's what it is. And unfortunately, people discount it as labor. They don't realize that no, it takes work. And it takes a lot of work to navigate difficult relationships. So the more that we can make it easier for people to just do their work, to care. We need to care a little bit more and be intentional about developing those relationships and being there for one another, to just think out loud. I really see that is one of the biggest
Yeah.
answers to making our work life just more enjoyable and
Yeah.
less stressful and lonely.
A
That's
good
all
coaching
another
friend of
topic.
mine, Melissa Stevens, talks often about female and male energy, and every individual needs to use both of those energies. We all have them. So men need to call up their emotional intelligence, their feminine energy, and
Mhm.
women, rather than sitting quietly letting everyone else take over the meeting, need to tap into their male energy to be able to do that. um, and I think that really kind of ties into the connection between emotional intelligence and effective leadership, being able to tap into those energies. How
Mhm.
can leaders balance the efficiency demands with the human side of management? And I think we've touched on this a little bit, but maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more about the balance. That word that we never can really achieve, but we'll go there anyway.
Yeah, well, it's the both and. It is sort of a balance, right? And it's polarities, right? Tasks and relationships are polarities. If we only
Mm,
focus on tasks, then we're missing out. We've discussed that. But if we're also only focusing on relationships, then we're not getting anything done.
yeah,
So, this efficiency and empathy are not mutually exclusive. People-centered leadership drives better performance.
right.
The goal is still to get the
Absolutely.
task done, to have this outcome, but we do so through people. So we have to, build relationships, understand what motivates our team members, and remove barriers, remove that friction, so people can work better together and faster.
Mm,
So balancing both starts with intention. I've been using that word a lot today. Pausing to ask, what do my people
yeah,
need in order to be successful? And it may be different for each individual, but ultimately asking that question, and what challenges, what can I do to help smooth the path so they can work more
yeah.
efficiently? The human side isn't extra. It's the foundation that really enables true efficiency to occur
Wow. Well, you and I could chat and chat and chat
all
about
day.
this. I just love having our conversation today of really why great leaders focus on self-awareness before strategy. And I hope that all you out in the audience have got as many gold nuggets as you can out of this conversation today. But if you wanted to delve a little deeper, I always share the contact information. So I will be sharing my slide. If you're just listening, you can get all this information in the show notes on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. I will read all the information for those that are listening if you want to jump on it right away. So her website is Dr. Julie Donley. That's DONLEY.com, drjuliedonley.com. Facebook is Dr. J. Donley, capital D-R, capital J, capital D-O-N-L-E-Y, Dr. J. Donley. LinkedIn is Dr. Julie Donley, all small letters. YouTube is at Dr. Julie Donley, all small letters. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Julie. She's going to tell you a little bit about those 3 books she has. She'll mention those for those that are just listening, as well as what she puts out on her website, maybe resources, tools that could help you, and what she puts out on social media. What's her favorite social media handle that you might be able to quickly get in touch with her. So, Dr. Julie, it is all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vicki. Yes, I have 3 books. The first is called The Journey Called You. It is a book on being more self-aware. So if that interests you. My second book is Does Change Have to Be So Hard? It is about stopping self-sabotage, and there are several strategies for how to make change just a little bit easier. And then, of course, my latest book, Leading at the Speed of People. I have a lot of resources on my website, drjuliedonley.com. My YouTube channel, I've just started to build that up, so that might be of interest to you if you like to listen. And of course, I have a newsletter. So when you visit my website, you can sign up for that. You can also visit me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting there as well. And grab a copy of the book if that interests you to help you on your journey towards self-awareness and self-leadership and being effective at leading others.
Fantastic, Dr. Julie. It has been just a pleasure chatting with you. I told you in the beginning that we were so aligned, and we definitely are.
We definitely
So with
are.
that, as always, I remind you that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.